Hey guys, Basement Horrors here, and welcome to another installment of True Horror Stories. Number 1. My dad had a friend called Ron, who would come to my parents' home each Sunday for a roast dinner, and would always bring some form of a toy for me. Naturally, I always looked forward to seeing Ron, and seeing what Barbie or Skydancer I was going to get this week. I later found out he was going through a divorce, and would come over to get out of the house and tell his life story to my mom and dad over numerous bottles of wine. Just to note, my dad is a high-ranking police officer, and he regularly takes our Alsatian Sophie to work with him. I must have been around 7 or 8, and my older brother was 18 to 19 when this happened. It was the summer holidays, and I was off school. I remember I was playing in the blown-up paddling pool in the garden with Sophie. The water was only up to my ankles, and I was splashing her while she was trying to catch the water in her mouth. I thought this was hilarious. There was a small convenience store at the end of my road, and Corey was either on the way there or on the way back. I just remember him saying that he was going to the shop, and he would get me a Princess magazine while he was there. My mom and dad must have been at work. I'm not sure how long I was playing there, but next thing I see is Ron unlocking the back gate and coming into the garden. He asked me where my parents were, and I simply shrugged and carried on. He was standing by the back door, just looking down at me. He started to comment on how nice my bathing suit was, and that my parents had sent him over to take me to the park, and I had to hurry up because it's getting dark outside. I became excited and ran into the house quickly to get changed, and Sophie was right behind me. I was in the process of putting on knickers, and when the phone rang. Running to my parents' bedroom, I jumped onto the bed and answered it. On the other end was my mom. She said she had a terrible feeling and had come over, and she just had the urge to call home and check on us. Corey's at the shop, and me and Sophie are getting ready to go to the park, and Ron's outside. He hasn't bought me a present this time, though, but he promises to bring me one next time. It went quiet on the phone. After a few seconds, I could just hear my mom asking me to repeat myself. I explained that Ron had come over. I was getting ready to go to the park with Sophie, and I would be back before tea. The phone went dead. I straight away thought that I was in some kind of trouble. It sounds silly, but I thought about maybe I was talking too long. Maybe I should have been to the park already. Jumping up, I saw that Ron had climbed the stairs and now was standing on the landing, just plainly staring at me. All I had on were some pink knickers. "I'm nearly ready," I shouted at him while I rushed to get ready. He took a step towards me, and Sophie lunged straight at him. I remember hearing them both go down the stairs. I could hear her growling and a massive commotion downstairs. I thought, oh boy, I'm in trouble now, and ran down the stairs after them. Sophie had Ron's arm in her mouth and was sitting straight on top of him. She was still somehow growling, looking him straight in the eyes. That's when my dad and two of his friends came barging in the door. He had simply had one thing to say to Sophie, and she let go of Ron's arm. It was torn to shreds. I seriously think I saw a bone. My dad took Ron away, and nothing else was said. My dad did end up taking me and Sophie to the park that day. Many years later, Ron was brought up in conversation. Apparently, he had had surgery on his arm where Sophie had latched on. In his car, they found an old bulky video camera, some rope, tape, and a large house knife. I asked if he's in prison now, and my dad just looked me straight in the eyes and said he didn't make it there. Number 2, guys. Hi, long-time lurker, first-time poster. Anyway, I would like to say that this did not actually happen to me. It happened to my best friend from camp. So I cannot exactly verify the validity of the story, but not sure what kind of twisted person would make something like this up. Anyway, let's get on with it. So basically, my friend was a camp counselor, and a pretty good one, I might add. I was not accepted to the program, but whatever. So this was his 5th or 6th year as a counselor, and he was taking like a cabin of 10 kids, ages 12-ish, out on an off-grounds trip. There was a long trail running behind the main area. So they started the hike out with all their gear packed on their backs, and they're probably about half a mile into the walking when it starts raining. He gets a radio message that is very fuzzy because both the rain and the distance. He decides it's nothing and keeps walking. Radio messages are usually pretty routine stuff. They get to their campsite and do normal campsite stuff. There's a little pond river type thing with a little rock to jump from. So after hours of this, may I mention in the pouring rain, things settled down and they decided to settle into bed. So basically this campsite, there's 2 bungalow-like hangs that protect you from the rain and a little outhouse. So once every settles in my friend and another counselor that were there light up a J. I know it seems bad, but this was one of the main reasons counselors loved it here, was the fact that they could light one without getting kicked out. We were college kids. Anyway, in the middle of the night, a kid who I'll call Timmy wakes up my friend and says he has to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. He goes over to the bathroom and is in there for a while, and my friend falls back asleep. He wakes up again in the middle of the night and remembers that the kid forgot to come back, so he walks over to make sure he got back okay, counts 10 heads, and goes back to bed. Everything is good and well when he wakes up around 5-ish, goes for an early swim to wake himself up, and when he gets back to his campsite, he hears his radio going off. He answers it, and the person on the other end says that he needs to get back to the main area ASAP, which is a while because this is around 4 miles away. He runs over to the kids, tells them they need to get packed up, while the kid runs to the bathroom and finds Timmy asleep on the toilet. Everyone gets up and starts jogging back towards the main area. Everyone makes it back okay, and it wasn't until later they were told there were a bunch of crazies, most likely growers or meth heads, that had run from rangers in the area. So that radio call they had gotten telling them to come back, but the scariest part was that my friend realized that there were 10 heads in the sleeping bags. One of the crazies had been sleeping with them. Number 3. I work in a fairly busy hospital downtown in the NICU. I usually work at night, and I kid you not, this happened to me less than 5 minutes ago. I figured it'd be good to jot this down before I forget. It's also a way for me to sort of have proof in case something comes of it. During orientation, we were taught to be observant to the signs of a possible abductor. We were taught to look for oversized clothing, bags, or shifty behavior. Luckily, I've never encountered a strange individual until just now. It's currently 2:59 a.m., and I've been sitting on the front desk since 11. I'm a nursing student, so I usually do the clerical work around here at the unit. I also watch the cameras to make sure no one is here and that isn't supposed to be here. It's usually pretty quiet at night, however, I've already had a sort of weird night, so this just adds a cherry on top of it. The NICU, and most of the second floor, is a locked unit. This means that in order to gain entrance, you have to pick up a phone, which then rings to the desk. Usually it's parents wanting to see their babies and family members who are lost. It quiets down around 11, so no one usually comes in or out during my shift, with the exception of housekeeping. One of the security cameras is situated so that I can see who is picking up the first phone. I have been sitting here browsing Reddit on the phone ring. I glanced over at the phone thinking it was a parent wanting an update or something like that. It took me a second to register that it was the number for the first set of doors. I picked it up and looked over to the screen. There was a lady in baggy clothing with a sling in her arm. I answered the door, and she said she wanted to find her cousin, who had apparently been brought up here from the emergency department. I asked her the last name, and she unintelligibly rambled off a Latino name that I only caught the first part of. Knowing that we did not have any new admissions, I told her we didn't have anyone by that name. I tried to get some sort of information out of her, and she again said that her cousin had brought up here from ED. I told her in case she would go to labor and delivery and talk to them. She hesitated, then said okay and walked away. I got a really weird feeling from her, so I checked the census to see if there was anyone that was being accessed to L&D, and there wasn't. So either she was at the wrong hospital, or she wanted to enter the unit to do something a little bit more sinister than just see her cousin. I shrugged it off and figured her cousin was an LD, that she would find her and all would be well. About 5 minutes later, the same lady appeared in her extremely baggy clothing and her sling. The only difference was that this time, she was putting the sling on and using her injured hand to mess with something in her oversized sweater shirt. She picked up the phone and once again asked to be let in to see her cousin, and that L&D said that they had no one by that name. I told her the exact same thing, and that she would need to get in contact with her cousin and go back over to L&D. She got hostile for a second, then hung up the phone. Whether or not she was trying to gain access to the unit for things that she shouldn't be doing, I'll never know. But creepy lady who looked like a baby snatcher, let's not meet ever again. Number 4. I usually lurk, and I apologize if it's too long or if there are any mistakes. But today I remember something that happened to me when I was 19. I live in New York City, uptown Manhattan, and my neighborhood is decent, and nothing too bad happens around here. So as a 5'3" tall female, I feel comfortable walking around at any time at night. Okay, so during the summer I went out with friends. We watched a few movies, and then late in the afternoon I decided I was done for the day. There are only so many movies a person can see. I was walking home when this short man, shorter than me, with blonde hair and green eyes, says hello and waves with a friendly smile. Confused, I ignored him and move on. The next day, I'm sitting in a park with my best friend. Again, the same short man from the day before walks past us and he waves and smiles at me. At this point, I start to think he knows my dad. Everyone knows my dad around these parts, so I wave back, trying not to seem rude, but still confused to who this man is, and I'm trying to place him, but can't. A week later, I'm buying groceries for a trip to the beach with some family and friends. At this time, the short man appears next to me and says hello. I greet him politely because if he does know my dad, he's the type to complain about routines every time he meets with me, and I'm not up for lectures. So I pay for my stuff and he goes on, and on about how big I've gotten and proud he is. Confused, I ask his name. He smiles, and instead of answering, he says, "You're so beautiful." I panic. He notices and makes a move to grab me. I was faster and managed to move far away from him, and I ran straight home. 2 days after that meeting, I am walking with my 16-year-old younger brother, who is 6 feet tall and weighs 240 pounds. And the short man sees me again and waves, but doesn't come near me. My younger brother asks me who the guy is. I tell him what's been happening. He looks at me weird, and I tell him I think the guy is a friend of our dad. Then he says, "No, that guy isn't." I freak out a little bit more, because this guy acts like he knows me. I confess this to my brother, who says he's going to walk home with me for the next few days, to see if this guy approaches me when he's with me. For 2 weeks, the short man does not approach me whenever I am with my brother. But one Saturday, late afternoon, I'm sitting alone at the steps of my building, waiting for my brother and his friends to show up with food and refreshments. The short man walks right by, and I thought he hadn't seen me, but he had. He starts with his usual smile and greeting, but this time he starts to lean down like he's going to kiss me. I jump up from my position and look from left to right. No one is nearby. I feel panicky. He tries to take my hand, but I pull them both away. He continues to talk about my looks, and how he says I've grown up nicely while looking at my body. At that moment, I see my brother running. He's on the short man in a second and says to the short man in a calm voice, "Move away from her." The short guy looks panicked, and he's looking at my brother, and he's trying to find a way to escape, but my brother's friends are now surrounding him. Even with bags of food, they look menacing. My brother grabs the short man, and next words still freak me out. "This is your first and final warning. The next time I see you, I will kill you." Then he shoves the guy, who was now red in the face and looked near tears. The short guy started running, and then it was my brother turned to me, and he pointed to my cell phone, asking me why I hadn't called them or at least the cops. I felt stupid, but the honest truth was I was panicked and forgot everything other than panic. So freaky, friendly, short man, let's not meet ever again. Number 5. Hey everyone, so I just discovered the subreddit yesterday and thought I'd tell a weird story that happened to me and my ex-girlfriend. So my family owns a cabin on a small lake up in New Hampshire. We go there every summer. It's basically our home away from home. There are other houses on the lake quite near us, but beyond that it's a pretty rural area. Miles of woods stretch behind the lake houses, so there's really no reason to be in the area unless you're hunting, own a lake house, or visiting the lake for a while. So one night, maybe 6 years ago, it was late, probably around midnight. My ex and I were laying in bed, just chatting about whatever, and all of a sudden we heard footsteps outside the open window. The window lays open only about halfway up to the wall of the side of the bed, and is situated so that it opens right from the bottom of the bed where our feet are. The ground around my house is covered in a layer of pine needles that drop from above, so it's pretty hard to walk around quietly. But the footsteps sounded like whatever was making them were trying their best not to be heard. They sounded relatively close, but we rationalized to ourselves that they were probably made from some sort of animal. A couple minutes go by and we hear them again, except this time they seem closer. They seem to be right outside the window, still trying to move quietly. At this point, the two of us are starting to get a little bit freaked out. Our mutual horror. We look down and see a hand slowly coming from the window. Obviously, we scream and wake the whole house up. My parents come running out of their adjacent room. We tell them what happened, and my father rationalizes as the event to be a figment of our imaginations. To this day, I don't know if he's right. The weird thing is, both my ex and I saw the same thing. How could it be our imaginations? To this day, I feel uneasy staying in that room, and I always make sure to shut the window before I go to bed. Hey guys, Basement Horrors here. I hope you guys liked today's video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what kind of stories you guys want. I enjoy doing these horror stories, the true horror stories, let's not meet stories, but they get boring after a while. So guys, tell me what kind of stories you want in the comments. Also, if you have any original horror stories, creepypastas, or artwork you want featured on the channel, send it into basementhorrors@gmail.com. Don't worry, it'll be in the description, you don't have to remember it. That's basically it for this video, so until Friday, have a horrific day.